What the Gophers have to do in order to keep up with the NIL. Not something that we want to do, it's a need. That today on Locked On Golden Gophers.
Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kane Rob, host of the podcast. I'm excited to get going here, and I hope you're getting excited too. Be sure to follow this podcast on any platform that you stream podcasts, whether that be iTunes, Spotify, Apple Pods, Stitcher, you name it. Find it at Locked On Golden Gophers, and be sure to subscribe. Speaking of subscribing, subscribe to the YouTube. The button's right there. Hit subscribe really quick so that way you can get updates whenever this podcast drops and you get the latest and greatest news. Again, we have mailbags. We have Guess That Pod. I have interviews, guests in the works. I'm going to talk to players. I'm going to talk to other analysts. I'm going to talk, who knows, to maybe players' parents, hopefully coaches. We're going to get this thing rolling. It's going to be great. And I want your suggestions. I want to know what you want to hear about when it comes to Gophers. This is a daily podcast, Monday through Friday. Everyday Gophers. Get your fill here, but I need to know what you want to talk about. So tell your friends about the podcast. This is the show where we always continue to row. What we're talking about today, we have an NFL draft prospect profile on Blaise Andries, and then we're going to dive into the NIL, and talk about what the Gophers need when it comes to that to stay competitive. But first, let's talk about Blaise Andries. Blaise Andries is a prospect for the NFL draft this season from the Golden Gophers. Honestly, I think he might be the better lineman when it comes to translation to the NFL. That's just how it is. It's the truth. I'm sorry if it hurts. Yes, I love Daniel Fa'alele. Yes, he is a mammoth-sized human. But I think Blaise Andries holds more value to NFL scouts and to what translates to the pro game. Now let's talk about Blaise Andries as a prospect. Now looking at his relative athletic score, or RAS, he scored a 9.8 out of 10 when it comes to his RAS score for his position. Just based on his build, it grades things such as composition size, composite explosion, and composite speed. That's what it's grading. And he graded at a 9.8, either good, great, or elite at every category. In the composite size grade, he got a good score. He had a great measurable when it came to his 6'6" size, gave him a 9.7 RAS on that category. And then his weight, he was graded a 6.08 for his weight. So he could get a little heavier for his position at the NFL, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. Putting on weight is manageable. You can't get taller. You can't shrink. So putting on weight is doable. So he can even grow in that area. Now, when it comes to explosion, it's measuring both the vertical jump and the broad jump. He graded out as a great in the explosion. He was at 8.75 on the vertical jump with a vertical of 30.5 inches, and then a broad jump of 810. And that graded out at an 8.06 on the RAS score. So explosive athlete, especially for a lineman, offensive lineman. And then you look at his speed grade, which was elite. He had an elite speed grade for an offensive lineman. Now, what that looks at is the 40-yard dash along with the 20 split time and the 10 split time. He graded out as an 8.9 in the 40 itself, a 9.19 in the first 20 yards, and a 9.72 in the first 10 yards. His 40 time was a 5.1. He was moving for a big man at 300 and what is that? 311 pounds. 311 pounds, and he's running a 5.1. He's outrunning most guys that are listening to this podcast, most likely. He's outrunning me. I'm not going to front. I don't think I'm running a 5.1 right now. Now, if you caught me in my college days, I'd get him. I'd have him. Don't worry about that. I would have him on the 40 in the college days. But now, he's probably getting me. 5.1, I can maybe get close. Maybe on a good day. Give me a little preparation. You know, we can make it happen. You never know. Who wants to see it? Let's make that. Let's time me. Maybe I can get Blaise Andries to hook it up. We'll do a 40 side by side. We'll see. We got to get enough fans on this podcast and get that growing so we can start the trend on Twitter and get this thing on and popping. You know what I'm saying? But moving on. Looking at his agility grade, it was a good grade. His shuttle cone graded out at a 7.8 on the RAS. His shuttle time was a 4.68, and then his three cone was a 7.84, which graded it as a 6.5 on the RAS. So again, graded out at a 9.8 overall out of 10. That's a great score. He's athletic, especially for his position. But the thing that starts out is during his time with the Gophers, he started 46 out of 46 games. He started all the games. On top of that, he was all Big Ten first team as voted by the media, all Big Ten third team 3 times as voted by the coaches, and he was an Associated Press all Big Ten second team. He's decorated for a lineman. Now, he played in 2021, he played 3 different rotations, and that is going to be the most important thing when it comes to Blaise Andries, is that he is fluid and flexible at multiple positions on the offensive line. Think of Elgton Jenkins, what he does for the Packers. It's hard to put into words how valuable that is. I think if you asked our friend over at Locked On Packers, Peter Bukowski, he would stress to you that Elgton Jenkins and his flexibility to play multiple positions makes his value exponentially better. It made him as a draft pick so much more valuable. And if Blaise Andries can do that at the next level, that's going to be massive. Some team is going to get a steal. Now, he started 9 games at right guard, 1 game at right tackle, and 3 games at left tackle. 13 games this past season. And he blocked for an offense that put up 4,681 yards and averaged 25 points a game. And we were one of the best run games in the entire country as far as number of attempts. I believe we were in the top 8 in number of attempts. So he was getting all the run and blocking his butt off for 4 or 5 running backs that saw valuable touches, and they all did relatively well. So it's not like it was all on the running back skill. These offensive linemen put in work, and they're going to do great work at the NFL. And Blaise Andries might be my favorite one. I'm excited. I think he is undervalued. That flexibility at the position cannot be stated more. I think he's going to be a steal. I think he's going to be a day 2 pick. I think that he is likely going to go late second or sometime in the 3rd round. And a team's going to get a steal with him. I am confident in that. So be sure to tune in to the draft. Cheer on your boy Blaise Andries. And wherever he goes, you know we will be a fan over here at the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast. Now, we are going to talk about the NIL next. Today's going to be a shorter episode, but we're going to talk about the NIL and what the Gophers need to do to stay competitive in this college landscape. But first, we're going to talk about our friends over at Built Bar. You see, now is the time in the year where typically people are falling out of their New Year's resolutions. You might have given it up by now, but not this year. I'm sticking to mine. I've been working out at least 4 days, 3 to 4 days a week, sticking to my protein, trying to eat better, getting ready for this wedding I got coming up. And Built Bars have been helping me with my protein intake. You see, Built Bars only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs. So it's not putting on a bunch of unhealthy crap that makes me feel gross. No, it's only 130 calories and not a whole bunch of other of that added unnecessary filler. But it fills me up with its 17 grams of protein. I take one after every workout. And it's great. It tastes delicious. That's the best part. You can replace your candy bars with a Built Bar. And the flavors that they have, astounding. It's great stuff. I've been preaching it, but mint brownie is my favorite. It tastes like a Girl Scout Thin Mint cookie. It's great. It's getting the job done. So, you know what? You need to try this. You seriously need to try it. So head on over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, go over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 at built.com for 15% off your order. So the next thing that we need to talk about, and it's a doozy of a topic, but we're going to talk about the NIL. We're going to talk about the future of college sports and why the Gophers need a collective to stay competitive. Now, what is a collective? We're going to get there. But with the new NIL, which stands for name, image, and likeness being approved, it allows athletes at the collegiate level to get paid and do sponsorships. And we're seeing a massive shift in the collegiate landscape as players may choose to go to university or even a market that allows them to profit more. Now you pair that with the one-time open transfer, we're seeing a massive shift in the commitments of these college athletes. We're not seeing players stay. The willingness to test the waters elsewhere is at an all-time high with these two things in conglomeration. Now, I'm all for student athletes being able to make profit on themselves and their contributions to their sports programs. But I do believe that over the next few years, we're going to see regulations to these standards because right now, as is, student athletes can basically be bought, so to speak, into coming to a university. Now, if we're being real, this might have been happening prior to any of this, a little shady under the table sort of deal, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that Minnesota was doing that, and I'm not saying that they didn't, because I don't know. I wasn't in those rooms. I wasn't in those meetings. If I was, would I be able to talk about it? Probably not. But that being said, this could provide smaller schools and less competitive programs an opportunity to take a swing on top recruits if they have the money necessary. But that's the big thing is, how are these smaller programs getting that money necessary? And so it's about working with the system as it is. So I read an article by Chip Scoggins on the Star Tribune that talked about how the Gophers need to get a collective ASAP. And a collective is a person, a group, or a company that serves as a third party to facilitate sponsorships, marketing opportunities for the U of M students under these NIL provisions that are allowed. So a company or a group of people that can help facilitate these deals because the schools can't get involved. In fact, the university is not permitted to handle NIL deals for athletes. Now, there's nearly 40 schools already at this moment in time, 40 schools that already have at least one collective. And industry experts are starting to say that all Power 5 schools will need to have one or have one by the end of the year. Some schools already have multiple, like your Bamas, your Texases, multiple. We don't have one here at the U of M yet, but we want to compete with the big dogs. We want to get to a championship caliber. We're going to have to. It's not negotiable. We need one. Now, examples of what collectives have done for those students in this past year, I'm going to read these straight up for you. One University of Texas collective will give every Longhorns offensive lineman on scholarship $50,000 annually to make charitable appearances. So you make a couple charitable appearances and you're getting $50,000 every year if you're on scholarship as an O-lineman at Texas. That's the type of opportunities these guys are getting. So if you're hearing that as a recruit coming in, oh, I can go play for the Gophers and PJ Fleck. Yeah, they've been developing something special. I really like it. I like the culture. But if I go to Texas, I'm making $50,000 a year on top of getting playing time, big program. Tough decision. Which one are you taking? I know what I'm taking. I'm taking the $50,000 a year. That's a decent job. That's a good job to most people. $50,000 as a college student? What? Yeah, sign me up. I'm in. Say less. Other deals. There's one 5-star football player in the class of 2023 that signed a deal that could be up to $8 million over the next 3 years. Now, these are the extremes of this collective, but what the collective can also do is it can help with more smaller things like paying athletes to make appearances, paying athletes to sign some things, helping athletes get deals with merch so that they can take pictures and post on social with that merch and get paid for it. Sponsorships with companies. That's what these collectives can help facilitate. And we need one here because it will help us guide and usher in and stay competitive with those bigger programs that already have this going. Now, what is unique with Minnesota is that we don't have NIL laws in place in our government. So our university has made its own policy, and Gopher athletes have to disclose their NIL deals to the school for approval. So that makes things a little bit harder. On top of that, people that would want to start a collective, cash is the thing that's standing in the way. How are you going to start off something that big, managing that much without an influx of cash to kick it off? Now, a lot of these are being run by well-off boosters at these other programs, but we have some top-notch Fortune 500 companies in the state of Minnesota that are homed here. How can we not get someone to get in the right contact with some of those companies? One of them has to be at least tempted on how they could kickstart not only their brand and their sponsorships and tie it together with Gopher athletes. That could be major for a company, but we need someone to grab hold and make that happen. Some of the major Fortune 500 companies that we have right here in Minnesota are Target, Best Buy, United Health, General Mills, 3M, and US Bank. Those are just a handful. There's more. But those are major companies. And honestly, some of these key players should be salivating at the thought of getting into this space. So the NIL is a key part of selling your programs, and it's going to keep growing unless some massive regulations get put on, which I don't see right now. There might be some in time, but as it currently stands, it's massive. And so whether we like it or not, we're going to have to get a hold of this and be able to use it to our advantage with recruits. So the Gophers need to get a collective and get a collective started for them or get left behind. That's what I got for you over here at the Locked On Golden Gophers. Now, I want to tell you about our friends BetOnline, which is your number one source for getting all of your sports information and betting stats. See, you can find all of the latest developments on the NBA playoffs, on MLB series. NHL playoffs are coming up. Whether you're a hockey fan, a basketball fan, a baseball fan, they got NFL draft. You want your numbers. You want to know who has the best odds to be the first offensive lineman off the board. Check it out at BetOnline. You want to put some money down on who's going to win the series between the Celtics and Nets? Go Celtics. Check it out at BetOnline. See, BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to the draft, esports, and more. Head over to the website or on your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, like I said, today's going to be a shorter episode. I'm going to leave you with the closing fact of thank you. Thank you for joining Locked On Golden Gophers. And we're just getting started, folks. It's going to be an absolute great time. Look, Minnesota Gophers fans are diehard. We are some of the best fans in the country, and honestly, some of the most underrated fans in the country. We have some of the best rivalries in college football. I saw a tweet go out the other day that talked about the best trophies. Minnesota was in 4 of those games. There were 8 options. Minnesota was 4 of those trophy games. The Axe, the Victory Bell, the Pig with Iowa, the Jug. All of these were listed. Those are 4 rivalry games, all Minnesota. We have some of the best fans. Let's build this up. I know you're out there. I know you talk to your coworkers, you talk to your boss, you talk to your family. You might talk to your kids. You might have kids at the university. Tell them about the podcast. Hit subscribe there. Let's build this thing up. I want your questions. I want to answer them every Thursday in our mailbag. I want to bring players on, and I don't want to ask them all of my journalistic questions. I want to take your questions that you want to ask those players, and I want to put it out there to them. I want to bring coaches on here, assistant coaches, talk about scouting, talk about recruiting. I want you to tell me and funnel through me what you want to hear from those coaches. This is going to be the home for Minnesota Gopher sports every day on the podcast format. I know it's going to, so please tell your friends. Please hit subscribe. Please get involved. Even if it's just a simple tweet or a comment down below. Let us know what you're interested in, what you like, what you dislike, and let's grow this thing. Again, this is the show where we always continue to grow. Again, I want to thank you. I want to say subscribe to the YouTube. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find your podcasts. And let's kick this thing off. My name's Kane Rob. I'm a former collegiate video coordinator and recruiting assistant for football. But I'm breaking down basketball, football, women's basketball, hockey. I'm hoping I can get into women's hockey too. I just need to dive myself more into those spaces, but I'm doing it for you. So thank you for tuning in. Please tell a friend and keep tuning in. Let's build this thing up. I appreciate you. Take it easy. We're going to kick it off next week with so much more. This is Kane Rob over at the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast, signing out. Peace out.